The conversation is going to be about navigating grief and just leaning into that. I'm not really a conversationalist, and I really appreciate TikTok because I'm able to see myself speaking, so I'm going to try my best. If you don't know, within the past 2 months, I've experienced 3 deaths. One, it's technically a death. Like, there's 4 deaths technically, but I don't really count that into the 3. And one of the deaths was shocking, traumatic, especially in the way that they passed. They passed on a plane, on a flight, and I won't get too caught up into that. But I was talking to my therapist earlier, and the most shocking thing about having to navigate the space from my perspective is identifying that people are weird. And I use the word weird. I think I used the word weird in my session today over 20 times because just words can't really grasp the behaviors of what I've experienced in navigating grief. But not to get too caught up in discussing the weird behaviors, some of the things that I've observed is everybody navigates grief differently, and I'm not here to shame people for how they navigate grief or attempt to, have this one way of thinking in terms of how people should present their grief. But it was a bit disheartening to see how much my Nana had poured into people, had just been there for people, and it felt like, from my perspective as somebody who was with her for 4-5 years, helping her navigate a major illness and doing the best that I can as her granddaughter, just seeing people abandon her, seeing people abandon somebody in their time of need, especially in such a vulnerable time of need, was heartbreaking because, again, she's poured so much into specific people and they couldn't even show up. And I feel like I'm kind of in that same space, but it's not the same. I'm not going through a life-altering illness, but people that I expected to show up didn't show up. People that did show up, some of them were really shocking. I wasn't really expecting them to show up. And it's disheartening. There's grief in losing people physically, but also losing relationships, things like that. So just having to navigate that has been very interesting. And when I say people are acting weird, it's to categorize it, when somebody is acting weird, to call them out is dangerous. Because I told my therapist, people know what they're doing. And from my perspective, it feels like I identify hey, something's off here. And I try to intellectualize it, understand it, rationalize it. But weird is weird. And when I say it's dangerous to confront them, because if you confront them, it's just a personal attack rather than a level of understanding. I'm trying to understand why you're acting this way or you're moving this way. And for me, it's extremely confusing because I just don't understand it. How I would never do these things to somebody, so I don't really understand why people are doing these things to me. And I think that's the hardest part, because it's I would never do this, and yet it's being done to me. And in talking to my therapist, I identified I do pour a lot into people, and I'm always willing to help. but I need to learn how to give myself that same level of care. Like, I told her I need to start gatekeeping. Like, from my perspective, I'm very knowledgeable about certain things. For me, certain things come very easy to me. So I'm always willing to share. If you need help with content creation, I'm there to lend a helping hand. If you have like aspirations about something and I have information on that, I'm always willing to share. But it comes a point where I need to gatekeep my talents and strengths and abilities because people are exploiting them. And coming to terms with that has been very interesting, because to have to identify, like, in a way, I'm putting myself in a position to be exploited. Although I'm not identifying that initially, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'm willing to help this person. There's a thin line between helping somebody and attempting to save somebody. And you can't save everybody. You kind of have to let people live the life that they're destined to live. And it's one thing to help somebody, but it's another thing to kind of overextend yourself. And I have to learn to not overextend myself. And going back to navigating grief, I'm not really like a tearful kind of person. I do cry, but I don't really like crying in front of an audience. So I might look happy, I might look put together, but obviously I'm hurting because I've experienced loss on such a grand level that it's very confusing, isolating, and on one end, I'm very grateful that I have this space to kind of focus on myself, but on another end, I'm like, this is uncharted territory. I've never had this much time to focus on myself. Even in elementary school, I had other people, other things to focus on. Even dating back to kindergarten, I've always had somebody or something, including myself, that I've had to take care of. So much so that in school, it's never just like, come to school, learn. It's like, I have to take care of this person. I have to worry about this. Even in undergrad, it wasn't just come to school, learn. It was like, I have so much going on outside of school that school is not really my top priority. I'm able to do the work, I'm able to thrive, I'm able to get stellar marks, things like that, but it's just not my main focus. Myself is not the main focus. And then in my master's program, my focus was on my Nana and her health. So again, not able to focus on the work. So I just think I'm trying to lean in on this time away from work, because they're toxic, they're not the best, so I'm not trying to focus on that like at all. But then I'm in the house and I'm just like, oh, this is a great opportunity to make content. But then again, on the other end, I'm like, well, you're supposed to be sad, so how are you able to push out content if you're supposed to be sad? So just providing myself with some level of grace. Like, there's no one type of way to experience grief, and don't feel compelled to get on the internet and kind of be the poster child or the example of how it should be to grieve, because there's no right or wrong way. If I want to make content, I can make content. If I want to smile, I can smile and not feel guilty about that. I think just not feeling guilt in regards to that. And yeah, this is a very interesting space that I'm in. A lot of people were kicked to the curb and I'm just trying to navigate that. Like, during I would say this was difficult. I can't really, I guess, quantify if this is the worst thing I've ever experienced, but it's top two for sure. But going back to the idea that when I needed certain people the most, that's when they decided to abandon. And I don't really feel abandoned. I kicked them to the curb. They didn't kick me to the curb. But it's like, again, when I needed you, you weren't there. But when you needed me, I was always there. So coming to terms with that is extremely difficult. But in terms of navigating grief, what has worked for me, and obviously there's no one size fits all, but listening to public radio, they call it a music companion. I'm listening to 90.5, which is in, I'm gonna botch this, Worcester. It's a public radio station in Worcester. It's a jazz station. And honestly, sometimes listening to music with words can be overwhelming and just annoying. Sometimes you don't really want to hear people talk. You don't want to hear English. So just listening to jazz was very nice. I put it on just to have some like background noise going. Another thing that has worked for me, I tried Lexapro. Not a fan. It felt like I was wearing a weighted blanket. It also made me very sleepy. So I stopped taking that immediately after starting it. I went back to yoga. I had been going to that for 3 years, and then I had to stop because of employment, boo. And then when I walked in, it was pretty full, but I still got the same spot where I usually go, and the instructor saw me. I don't think he recognized me, but then when I sat down in the spot where I usually sit, he was like, "Oh, you're back." And I was like, "Yeah, glad to be back," essentially, because I really do enjoy yoga. I did stop for a bit because my cousin said that it was well, essentially she was trying to say that it's anti-Christian to do yoga, but a lot of things are that are good for you, especially for people of color. Like, everything is demonized, like, so you kind of have to pick your battles with that. But I'm not going to get too much into that because I don't really believe that. I don't really believe yoga is anti-Christian or demonic. I go there for movement and community and just for a space where I don't have to be on the phone, I don't have to do things, I don't have to be anything but present, and I really do value that. So yoga has been really helpful for me. Therapy has been helpful, just processing what I've been experiencing. This has been going on for 4 years. Just experiencing being like a caregiver, assisting somebody with a illness, and just navigating that. What else has been helpful for me? Taking baths has been very helpful. In the beginning, it was like really, one thing about it, I really do care about my hygiene. I'm gonna get in that shower no matter what. And I noticed that in the beginning, the very beginning, there would be days, not days necessarily, but it would be like day 2 and I'm like, oh, I haven't showered in 2 days. And I'm like, I just don't have the motivation. So what I do when I don't feel like I want to do like a full shower routine, I just run bath water. I run a bath and I just put the water at like sitting level. That way I'm not necessarily soaking, or I don't feel like I have to sit in the water because I don't want to waste it if it's too much. So that has really helped me taking baths. Ironically, listening to Shira 7. What's her name? Yeah, Shira 7, the Sprinkle Sprinkle lady. Because outside of the whole finding a provider rhetoric, I do value that her main talking points are about self-confidence, self-reliance, self-resilience, and also just pouring into yourself. So that has been really helpful. I painted a black square chalkboard in my bathroom, and I just been writing positive things on that. I haven't really been connecting with people in my immediate sphere. I've just been like to myself. Again, there's like a lot of processing that I have to do in terms of like identifying what I want to do next, like with licensure and things like that. And I will find out, hopefully, if I received or if I pass my exam next week. Honestly, it's been the worst. Like, imagine you're navigating grief and you never really know when you're going to get the answer. And it's been 3 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. You never really know when you're going to get the email. So you're just like on edge, like waiting to figure out, oh, did I pass? Did I fail? I'm not too sure. So I think for people interested in getting their license, figure out something to do in the waiting period, because just sitting like a waiting duck or waiting like a sitting duck is not helpful. It might be also unhealthy. Just like constantly checking your email, stressing yourself out over something that's essentially out of your control at this point. So just waiting on getting that so I can move forward. Also, I was looking into getting EMDR certified just in this waiting period. Now that I don't have to work, I feel like there is value in working, but it's also like stressful. Working does not have to be as stressful as it's made to be. Working for me is not difficult. Interacting with others, higher ups, quote in quotations, because I don't understand, the behavior doesn't, I guess, differentiate them from the actual coworkers. The only thing that kind of like sets them apart is that they like tell us what to do. But outside of that, it's like, why are you here? How did you get this job, honestly? So for me, I found value in the work, but like many systems, the system is flawed terribly. And I think that's the most frustrating part, because I can show up and do the work and do it well, but you are making my job 10 times more difficult because you hate your life. You have no autonomy and control outside of this here space, and you want to control me, and that's like extremely frustrating, because it's like, go find something to do. But essentially, I'm not at work, so I'm not going to focus on work. And I did document my licensure journey. I did little, I did video diaries on my Mac and photo booth, and I do plan to push that out at some point. But honestly, I'm just kind of going with the flow right now, like trying to figure out myself, my needs, what I need, because this has been a crazy 2 months, and I'm just trying to kind of get some footing here. Yeah, so I think moving forward, I know I want to focus on my business for sure. I think the most frustrating part, again, about being a business owner is like when things come up and you're like the sole person, the business has to take like a back seat. And because so much was going on, I was like, I would be consistent and then I'd fall off because things were going on. And obviously I'm not going to go into grave detail about what was going on, but it's been a crazy like 10-15 years. Like I'm in my 20s, so I would say for 20 plus years it's been pretty hectic, and this is the first time I've had like a sense of peace. Essentially, it's not very peaceful, but I'm at peace and I'm able to focus on myself. So just not being guilty for taking this time to myself, learning what I need, but also just being open to new things. and putting myself out there, but also sticking to my boundaries. There are certain things that I'm not going to talk about, but I want to be more consistent. I will be more consistent to the best of my ability, and I'm saying that not to hold myself accountable, but as like a hope that I will be, because I really do enjoy pouring into my business, making content, and just being myself in spaces where I'm able to, and I feel like I'm able to be myself through my business. So I'm interested to see what the next 2 months looks like. I return to work in April, so that should be interesting. But until then, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and I'm gonna close out there. I'm gonna get better at talking. I figured this is the first step, and I always say that, like, I'll get better, I'll continue to do it, but now I'm really seriously gonna take it serious. And my name is Dasia. I'm the owner of Sincerely Sanguine. Hopefully by next week I'll be a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I look forward to, I guess, taking anybody who's listening or watching along on the journey with me. For me, I do not find joy in being perceived. I do not like being watched, which is ironic. I will literally sit and watch my TikToks for hours, just like cracking up. But I don't like the idea that people are just watching me. Obviously, I wouldn't say I don't really care for, like, it's like, okay, hold on, let me get my words. I don't get my value in people liking me or disliking me, but I become very uncomfortable when I know people who dislike me are actively watching me, like a show, waiting for something, expecting something. That's where it's like a little bit of, I don't know if it's self-consciousness or hyper-awareness, but I don't like it. So I just need to get comfortable with the idea that if you like me or if you don't like me, I shouldn't care if you're watching. Because I think it's also like a control thing. Like, I like to be able to control who watches my stuff, but when you elevate, it becomes more difficult, because obviously, especially on TikTok, because you can't really control what goes where. But I think I just need to get more comfortable with being watched, being perceived. Think what you want to think at this point. But yeah, I'm just taking it day by day. I'm doing okay. I like to say my will to live is still relatively high, and I'm just gonna see where this goes. Toodles, and talk next time. That's so funny. Well, now that I know that I could just do it on my phone, that's pretty helpful. I'm gonna go home and eat. I made fish yesterday. That was so bomb. But I usually come here because it's like a studio, but this is the second time I've come here and I haven't been able to get the microphone to work. So I'm just gonna stop coming. I might still come here just to sit in the space, like, but I would feel more comfortable recording in my own house. But also it can be kind of noisy, just like with people going back and forth and slamming the door. So I think just coming here will be really helpful. But I'm gonna listen to this back, and then I'll be in my house. So if I don't come back, see you when I see you.